I woke up at 5 a.m. to a sound that rattled the windows. For a split second, I thought it was thunder rolling across the Oklahoma sky, one of those deep, rolling booms that shook the earth before a storm. But when I stepped onto my porch, barefoot and half awake, the truth hit me like a nail to the spine. A 7-foot trench circled my entire property, clean edges, fresh soil, steam rising in the cold morning air. And standing on the other side of it was the HOA board, lined up like a firing squad, smiles carved onto their faces. They thought they had me trapped. They thought a fake permit, a rented bulldozer, and a pre-dawn operation would force me to sell. They thought I was alone. What they didn't know was that every inch of my land, from the fence posts to the old birdhouse, was wired with hidden cameras. Cameras that had been recording their every move since midnight. Cameras that would expose everything. They didn't know that this morning, the hunter wasn't me. It was them. But if you want to understand how I ended up standing barefoot on my porch with a trench around me and a war in front of me, you have to go back, way back, to where it all began. Because none of this started with bulldozers or fake permits. It started 30 years earlier, behind an old barn on a quiet patch of Oklahoma dirt. I was 12 years old when my father first took me out back and showed me how to replace a fuel filter on our old generator. Most folks would have just called a mechanic. Not Dad. He believed in fixing things yourself, not because it saved money, but because it tied you to the land. Made you responsible for it. He pressed a cold, heavy wrench into my hand and said something I didn't understand at the time. This land runs because we know how to keep it running. The weight of those words didn't settle until years later. Back then, they seeped into me quietly, like rainwater disappearing into red Oklahoma clay. We lived on 12 acres just outside Tulsa. Nothing fancy, just honest land. Cottonwoods leaning over the creek, fences that needed mending every spring. A workshop Dad built with his own hands before I was even born. When he passed, all of it came to me. And for 20 years, I kept every inch of it the same. Same soil. Same porch. Same workshop where Dad taught me to use my hands. People called it outdated. Some called it stubborn. I called it home. In a world full of rules, HOA rules, zoning rules, lawn height rules, having something that is truly yours. That's freedom. I rebuilt the porch myself after a tornado tore half of it off in 2014. Installed solar rigs out back so I never had to rely on the grid. Deepened the well when the city water started tasting like pennies. My closest neighbors were deer, coyotes, and a cow from old Tom Halverson's place who wandered over every time his fence sagged. Life was quiet. Predictable. A life measured in seasons, not in HOA meetings. But progress has a nasty habit of creeping closer every year. And one morning, it finally hit my fence line. 4 years ago, developers rolled in with polished boots and salesman grins. They unrolled blueprints on the hood of a shiny truck and talked about modern communities and shared values. What they really meant was cookie-cutter houses on quarter-acre lots, with rules about everything from your mailbox color to how loud your dog could bark. Their subdivision, Sunny Hollow, popped up like weeds after a rainstorm. And their western boundary ran right up against mine. I figured that'd be the end of it. Let them play HOA on their side, and I'd live free on mine. I was wrong. The first sign came quietly, a crisp white envelope with no return address, stamped with the initials SAA. Inside was an offer to buy my land. Community expansion, they called it. Fair compensation. I tossed it straight into the fire pit. 2 weeks later came another letter, this one with a number highlighted in yellow. $600,000. A lot of money for people who didn't know what 12 acres really meant. But to me, it wasn't even close. You can't put a price on where your father stood. Where you learn to hold a wrench. Where every inch of dirt holds a memory. I ignored them. I shouldn't have. Ignoring HOA President Karen Martell was like poking a rattlesnake with a short stick. The strike was coming. Trouble didn't start all at once. It never does. It creeps in, quiet at first, just enough to make you doubt your own instincts. The first strange thing was a drone. I was checking the fence line when I heard a high-pitched whine. Looked up, and there it was, black, small, hovering too low, too steady. The camera lens twisted, refocused, studied me like prey. Then it zipped off. I brushed it off. Drones are everywhere these days. But then came another. And another. By the fourth, I knew this wasn't curiosity. Then Thursday came. I spotted a white sedan parked against the sunny hollow boundary. Engine off, windows tinted darker than legal. It sat there for 2 hours. Didn't move until I walked toward it. Then it rolled away, slow, unbothered. I tried convincing myself it was nothing. But the next incident ended all doubt. I was repairing a pasture gate when I heard footsteps behind me, steady, confident steps. I turned around. 2 men in safety vests. Clipboards in hand. Hard hats. Corporate smiles. And they weren't on their land. They were 6 feet inside mine. "Can I help you boys?" I asked, my voice far from friendly. The older one replied, "Survey crew. Checking boundaries." "Great," I said. "Then you know you just crossed mine." His smile faded. And that, right there, was the moment the war truly began. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The 2 men froze like raccoons caught in a spotlight. The younger one kept glancing at the freshly painted, "Private Property" sign nailed to the fence post. He knew exactly where he was standing. They both did. But the older one wasn't the type to back down. He straightened his clipboard like it was a shield and gave me that same, tired corporate smile. "Sir, this land is technically part of the Sunny Hollow Expansion Corridor. Our maps show." I cut him off. "That's funny," I said. "Because my deed shows something else. And unlike your clipboard, mine's legally binding." He swallowed hard, but he wasn't finished. "If you have an issue, take it up with the HOA president." "Oh, don't worry," I said. "I already plan to." They walked back across the boundary, quick, nervous steps now, and disappeared into the white sedan I'd seen so many times before. As they drove away, I felt the first flicker of something I hadn't felt in years. Anger. Not the quick kind that burns out like a match. The slow kind. The kind that smolders deep inside and grows hotter every day. Sunny Hollow wasn't expanding. Sunny Hollow was invading. That night, I sat on my porch long after the sun disappeared. Coyotes yipped near the creek, and the wind rattled the tin on the old workshop roof. It should have been peaceful. But something in the air had shifted. The land felt watched. Observed. Like the soil itself knew trouble was crawling in again. So I made a decision. If they wanted a war, I'd prepare for it. The next morning, I installed the first hidden camera. Not the cheap kind. These were motion-activated, infrared, solar-charged, the kind ranchers used to catch poachers. I hid some in hollowed-out fence posts. Others inside birdhouses. A few on treetops angled toward the Sunny Hollow border. By the end of the week, my land was wired like a silent security web. I wasn't paranoid. I was prepared. They didn't know the cameras were catching every word, every step, every illegal decision. All I had to do was let them make the final mistake. And they did. They came at 2:17 a.m. The footage shows it perfectly. A convoy of trucks rolling in with their headlights off. Workers whispering as they unloaded equipment. Karen overseeing everything like a general leading an army. The bulldozer's engine screamed to life, and the digging began. For 3 hours straight, they carved a ring around my home. A perfect circle. No breaks. No gaps. A literal moat. Dirt flew. Men cursed. Karen checked her watch again and again. At 4:58 a.m., she smiled. At 5 a.m., the bulldozer roared off. And at 5:02 a.m., I stepped onto my porch. Barefoot. Half awake. Staring at the trench that cut me off from the world. Karen and the HOA stood on the opposite side, waiting for me to panic. "Good morning," she called. "City safety violation. You'll need to vacate the property immediately." But instead of yelling, instead of cursing, instead of breaking down, I smiled. Because I had the footage. Every second of their illegal operation. Fake permits. Trespassing. False construction orders. Tampering with property lines. Multiple federal violations. So I grabbed my phone, opened the camera app, and held it up. Karen frowned. "What do you think you're doing?" I tapped the screen. The clip from 2:17 a.m. began playing. Loud. Clear. Every single word. Her face drained of color. You can't." "Oh, I can," I said. And I already did. I sent the video to the county inspector, the sheriff, the district attorney, and 3 local news stations. By the time lunchtime rolled around, the HOA board wasn't smiling anymore. By evening, 2 of the workers were arrested. By the next morning, Karen was in handcuffs. And by the end of the week, Sunny Hollow's entire board was facing criminal charges. The trench didn't trap me. It trapped them. Because my father was right. This land runs because we know how to keep it running. And we know how to protect it too.